Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of Real Take Real Estate with the Joseph team, where we give you our real take on today's housing market and everything to do with real estate. I'm your host, Maddie Maloney, followed by my co-hosts,
Joe Sambear
and Sam Feda.
So today we are going to be going over the hot topic of the cost of renting and renting versus owning. So this is especially a hot topic right now when we have such high prices and low shortage of homes available. People are really considering, is it really worth it to try to go through this process to buy a home right now when rates are high? Do I wait and do I just rent right now until rates go down? Well, we're going to give you the pros and the cons. And we're going to go over when, maybe it's not going to be a good time to buy, because although we truly believe in the benefits of home ownership, we know that for everyone, there's always going to be a time in your life where maybe it's not the best time to buy. And we don't want to put you in that situation where, you're getting pushed into owning a home when maybe it's not going to be the right choice. So we're going to go over when maybe you should consider, maybe it is going to be the best time to rent right now. Or if you have some holdbacks that are holding you back from owning a home, maybe you should consider, maybe it is going to be a good time to buy right now. So we're going to go over that. We have some great stats to go over as well, which I wanted to start off with this one that I have seen circulating on social media that I think is such a great stat to really show the history of mortgage rates and maybe why, if rates are the only thing that are holding you back from owning a home, because we have been blessed the last couple of years. We had in 2020, 2021, when rates were so low, we got down into the 2s, the 3s, and we were blessed at that point. And I think it's gotten into people's heads now that, I just got to wait until rates go down and are low like that again. Well, I am going to say, and most experts would say, I don't know if we're really going to see rates get down that low. Maybe one other time in our lifetime, but not anytime soon. So if we look back in history, if we go to 1971, when rates were about 7.25, similar to around where they were right now, if you were to wait at that time to buy a home until rates had dropped, you would have been waiting 22 years until 1993 when rates dropped below 7.25. So when you think about waiting until rates drop to buy a home, if rates are the only thing that are holding you back, hopefully this podcast changes your opinion that, maybe we shouldn't let that high interest rate hold us back from owning a home. So Joe, I'm going to start with you. We kind of talked about rates there. What else is, a good indicator of maybe when it is a good time to buy versus maybe when you should only rent and maybe not the best time to be a homeowner?
Yeah, well, just to finish that point on the rate, right now we're more elevated in the short run. But if you look at right now, we are like right on the number for the historical average since 1971, since Freddie Mac's been tracking interest rates. So this is normal. It's not high when you look at from that broad perspective.
Yes, we were just, a little spoiled with interest rates previously, and people got into their heads, interest rates should always come back and be low. It was great for everyone who was able to take advantage of that, but it shouldn't be the expectation of what you are going to get in the near future anytime soon.
And don't forget that interest rate and purchase price are correlated. When rates are lower, prices tend to be higher. When rates are higher, prices tend to be more tampered. So there is a correlation there that makes a huge difference.
So the elevated purchase price or the elevated interest rates, this is creating an opportunity for some buyers that maybe weren't able to get into the market when it was so hot and there were so many cash offers and over asking price. Maybe you have to take the higher interest rate, but you are able to be a homeowner and take advantage of that opportunity.
And secure that price where the price you can't recreate or redo, the interest rate, you might have another opportunity soon and at some point in the next 30 years to take advantage of a better interest rate, I'm sure. But going back to the rent versus buy, the key factors, I would say your financial position, your employment situation, and your family relationship situation, your family unit. And what I would say about the employment is a lot of time we see movement as employment. People are relocated, they got their first job, maybe they finished their education. That's always a key point where someone's looking to relocate or settle into some housing. And this is the decision where rent versus buy. And when we look at the financial situation, I guess one thing that we would encourage or discourage is, if you're not well positioned to purchase, you might be jumping the gun a little bit if you don't have something set aside for savings for the down payment. Maybe you're just finishing off a few loans, like maybe a small credit card. You're finishing a few auto payments till your installment loans are completed. It would be advisable to make sure you have the cash flow needed. So you might qualify for a mortgage, but are you going to really be comfortable with a permanent mortgage payment at that level? Because, you might be able to do it for a month or two, but can you consistently make that payment for the next 12 months, the next 3 years? Are you going to be comfortable doing that? And you kind of need to project like what your income's going to look like. Is your income going to increase dramatically, or is it going to stay pretty level? If it stays pretty level, then that's kind of what the cards we're dealing with, and we need to make sure maybe you need to pay off a few credit cards or a few debt, because cash flow is critical.
Yeah,
it really is.
You never know what might go wrong too. When you walk in the house, you got to furnish it. There might be stuff you want to update or take care of that you weren't expecting. It's really, you don't want to jump into something if you can't afford both the payment and the total investment.
It's important to know that just because you may be qualified to purchase a home doesn't mean that it's really going to be the best time to purchase the home. And when you have a good lender on your side helping you kind of make that decision and that determination of, is this a good choice for me? They're going to be looking at your entire picture. It's not going to be a good idea to purchase a home if you have to completely deplete your savings in order to come up with the funds needed for closing. We're not trying to just, get you into a home and be like, okay, good job, good luck now. We want to set you up for success. And what that looks like is being financially stable, where you have a good emergency savings for if something does go wrong, if the furnace goes out, if you need some updated appliances.
And not only that, the other situation is, had you paid off that car installment loan or paid off a little debt, you might be looking at a totally different category home that might not need a furnace, that might not need a roof, that might be in a better condition, that might be a bigger home, down the road that you without having to move quickly and, find something that just works, that just is affordable, but has a lot of issues.
Yes.
So you might have more long-term success, I would say.
And also with that, with maybe paying off some of those, that may also increase your credit score. And that will be a huge factor in a better interest rate, maybe some better mortgage insurance as well. And that will be making a big difference in your total payment. So when you first look at becoming pre-qualified, your lender should go over everything. This is where we're at right now. I think either it's going to be a good time to buy, or, if we wait a little bit, let's save up a little bit more. Let's work on your credit a little bit more. Then in a couple of months, it's going to be a much better time to buy.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing I would say is it's never, and I tell every customer, it's never too early to apply. It's never too early to get started. It's never too early to talk to a realtor partner, test the water, see where you are at. And, even if you're not buying right now, see what's on the market, see what price point you're going to be, see what kind of savings you're going to need, see what you need to do on your credit. It's never too early. Even if you said, I'm not going to buy for 2 years, I would tell you it's never too early to do some mortgage planning and get with a realtor partner so they kind of know your goals and objectives. They don't mind, even if they know it's a year out. They want to be a partner with you and help
Same
you.
with us as well. Maybe you're not looking to purchase for a year, but we can do a review before, make sure that your credit report, everything is up to date there. There's no surprises of a collection that maybe you didn't know about, or maybe something that we should, pay off or work on before purchasing a home. So it's always such a good idea just to get ahead of it, so that we're not trying to play catch up when you found a home that you want to make an offer and everything's kind of last minute, and we're doing everything we can to get it into the home, which we still can do, but you're in much better position and you're much more comfortable going into that if you get everything done up front. So that's great on the financial situation, and then going into the employment as well that you mentioned.
Yeah, and so I think that's the thing is if you're prepared for this, where we see problems are where people just jump in at the last minute and say, my lease is coming up soon and I'm going to go buy a house immediately. Mm-hmm. And they haven't thought through like, okay, who are you buying it with? Mm-hmm. Who's on the mortgage with you? Does this make sense? Time and planning solves a lot of problems in this area.
Definitely. So, making sure that you're in a good financial situation, making sure that your employment and your employment goals for the future, allow you to be a homeowner, that you're going to be a homeowner for at least, 4 to 5 years. If your employment situation, if you're not sure exactly what your future is going to hold, and maybe you're going to be changing locations in about 2 years or something, maybe that's a time where, it does make sense to rent for those 2 years until you know exactly where you're going to be able to settle down at. Maybe at that point too, you have some extra funds from a raise or anything with your employment, but you're a little bit more stable at that time.
Especially positions where it might be per diem, it might be a lot of overtime, some bonus, commission. You want to see those cycles, and that's why we require, a 2-year history in some of those positions, because you want to see the whole cycle. You might be starting a position and you're earning great income because of overtime, but is that going to be consistent? Mm-hmm. It's great now, but is it going to stay in that manner? That's the kind of employment thing we're talking about, is how stable is that and what's the trajectory of your income?
Definitely. Mm-hmm. And then another area that we have seen before is, when it comes to your relationship status. Now, if you really want to own a home, but in order to do so, you need to have your partner, your girlfriend or your boyfriend on with you in order to own this home. But maybe you're not so sure if you see yourself with this person in the near future, or you really haven't tied the knot just yet. It's just, we've seen it before where, this couple, they're just dating, they buy a home together. A year later, 2 years later, they're coming back to us. Yeah, things didn't go so well. We now need to refinance. Well, now you're not going to qualify for the home on your own. And it doesn't turn out to be a great situation. So if you want to buy your home when maybe you're just dating, you don't have a set, partner just yet, it is attainable. But at that point, I wouldn't tie yourself down with going in with it with someone else that you're not certain that you're going to stay with for the rest of your life.
Well, and I think the key on that is, that's your choice of who you want in the mortgage and who you want to purchase a home with, and whether it's a sibling, a parent, a partner, a cohabiter, it doesn't really matter. I think what matters is that you have a clear set of expectations, and if a plan of if we want out of this real estate transaction, what is going to happen. Yes. So having a plan, and definitely a cosigner is a great example of a parent. It's like, okay, well, you do realize you're going to be tied to this for 30 years, and that's okay as long as you're okay with that. And maybe is there a game plan to refinance and have you be removed, or maybe there isn't a game plan. But I think just making sure everyone's transparent, from us to the customers and between the owners and the people getting on the mortgage is critical, that transparency.
Yeah, because we've seen successful transactions too where you have to add a dad or a mom to it, but there was a bigger plan. Oh, in 2 years, I'm going to be done with school, have a good career. We're just buying this for not necessarily temporary housing to go to school, but there are future plans to get the parents off the mortgage, and it is successful. So there can be those options too.
Yes, definitely. So we've kind of gone over a couple of situations where maybe it's not going to be the best time for you to buy, but say now you have a set successful financial situation, you have your emergency savings, you have your down payment, you're in a good relationship, you have stable employment, and now the only thing maybe that would be holding you back is going to be the interest rate. Now that is where we say, all right, maybe let's try to change your perspective on that. The interest rate should not be the only thing holding you back. And now there's a common phrase out there that you date the rate, marry the home, which in this aspect, you say, you're buying the home because you love the home. The rate is not always going to be the same. The rate is, most likely going to change in the future. Now, what you shouldn't do is buy a home thinking that you're only going to be able to afford it if rates go down. that's not going to be the greatest option to get into. You should get in the home knowing that if your rate stays the same for the rest of time, that you can still afford that and that it's still going to work for what your future holds. But let's go over some other good examples of the benefits of owning a home. So Sam, can you go into, why it's good to buy and some of those benefits?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the reasons being it stabilizes your housing costs, really. So if you're renting year over year, odds are your monthly rental payment is going up year over year. When you purchase a home, you're locked in at that interest rate. Your principal and interest isn't going to change for the full, 15, 20, 30-year term that you choose. And then, anything that can fluctuate is going to be your real estate taxes or homeowners insurance, which, can go up year over year, but those are, capped. There's caps on how much those can go up, whereas your landlord can decide to, after your lease is up, shoot that through the roof however long you want. So that's one big portion, is what to expect for that full term on how much your housing cost is going to be.
And having control over that as well is just huge, because people don't realize that, when you are renting, you really don't have any control over that. You could be kicked out because, maybe the landlord sold the property and now the new landowner wants to make all these renovations or something, and now you have no idea what you're going to do. Where when you own a home, there's a lot more fixed variables and a lot more that you yourself have control over. And that, like you said, the principal and interest payment, that's not going to change unless you need a refinance in the future for whatever reason. But you have that security in knowing that that cost is going to be fixed.
And obviously over 20 years, inflationary numbers of rental compared to that number never changing. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Once you push it out a long period of time.
Yeah, because we've seen rents increase over the last 3 to 4 years
very dramatically,
along with everything else. Is just very expensive. And if you had a home that you owned prior to that, you're in a good spot right now for sure.
And that kind of ties us into our next point of another great benefit of owning the home is the wealth that is tied into it as well.
For sure.
Most homeowner or most people have their real estate is the biggest asset they have, bigger than the retirement usually. Bigger. I mean, obviously it changes once they get closer to retirement, but the Federal Reserve did a study in 2022 and they said that, a renter versus a homeowner has 40 times the net worth of the average renter. And obviously there's other things that play into that, I'm sure, but they basically had a renter had a net worth of $10,400 and a homeowner had a net worth of $396,000.
Wow.
So it's dramatic, and a lot of that 396 is appreciation and equity in their home.
Sure.
So it changes the financial dynamics, whether it's even businesses or personal. Most value net worth comes from the accumulation of real estate.
Exactly. And one thing I like to say too is if your rent's $2,000 a month, you're giving all $2,000 to your landlord. You don't get anything for it. If your mortgage payment's $2,000 a month. Yeah, in the beginning terms, if you have a 30-year mortgage, the majority is going to interest, but you're still keeping, taking a $100 bill or however much goes towards principal from your right pocket to your left pocket. It's going into your overall net worth, paying yourself versus handing the full.
And as you get probably about halfway through, it starts being 50-50.
Flip-flops, exactly.
And then it flips out completely. So
and all that time, too, your value's appreciating, too, the majority of the time.
Right.
Values of homes are going up. I think, there's only twice in the last 75 years, 2 years out of that 75 years where values of homes actually went down.
A negative appreciation.
It's continually appreciating, especially right now with such low demand. There's such a high demand for homes, and with the limited inventory, it's keeping values very stable and
even
increasing.
in average years and just basic inflationary numbers.
Exactly.
Just historical inflation, you have a 3% increase year over year. I mean, that's accumulates pretty quickly.
Very quickly.
And snowballs pretty fast.
Yeah.
Real estate is always going to be one of the best, most stable investments that you can make. And it's just so important. And, I don't know if many people know that really going into a home. Maybe they want to buy a home because they're having a family or, they want to backyard for their pet, or, they don't want to live in an apartment anymore. So those are all great reasons to buy a home. But then, you also have the benefit of attaining that wealth as well. And you're going to have that equity in the home that you can then use in the future. And then when you want to upgrade your home or maybe have a vacation place, you can tap into that equity. And there's just so many benefits that go into home ownership that, just really outweigh anything when you're thinking about just continuing to rent. Now, another point that some people will bring up is, I don't really have time to be a homeowner. I don't really want to deal with, everything that comes along with home ownership. Maybe I don't want to deal with yard work. But then at that point, my counter would be, there's other options. You don't have to have just a typical single family home. There's great condos as well, where you kind of get the best of both worlds. You have someone with an association or something that's going to take care of the yard work and some of that stuff. So there's always going to be an option that can meet your needs and how you see that you want to live your life in the future.
And even renting a home, usually you have to maintain the general
Home,
maintenance.
Or dealing with, a landlord that maybe takes forever to come in and do any repairs, and what repairs they do may not be the best. So, with owning a home, you just have so much more control over where you're living, over your finances.
And if there are concerns about stability of employment and how long you're going to be in there, there's usually solutions to that. We do see that, especially in a university town or some places where there might be a lot of transition. What we advise is, okay, you're going to be here for 3 years. Well, maybe you should find a home that's going to be very easy to resell. Find an area that is very popular. You usually might have to pay a premium because you're finding a home in this very stable market. Find a stable market and tell your realtor partner and say, hey, just so you know, going into this, I'm going to purchase a home. I kind of want a home that's going to be very easy to resell. I'm really concerned about the resell. Or a lot of times looking at a home saying, okay, well, I think I'm going to transition to a bigger home in the next couple of years. Well, then maybe you should be thinking about a home that would be in a good spot for a rental. So just taking those concerns and addressing it up front, making sure your partner knows what the goals and objectives are, instead of just finding a house with that next step in mind is critical.
It's all planning as much as you can up front to be ready. I think, it's always a good time to buy. You can probably usually find a good reason to buy a lot of times, but it's really just how you plan and prepare yourself for that decision.
Exactly.
The best time to buy is when you can afford to buy.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the rates. Don't worry about things that you can't control. That's the main thing. You're not going to be able to control where rates are, what inflation is doing. But what you can control is what your savings are, what your employment situation, and where you're going to settle down your family for the future. And you can control that plan. And it's also good to know that you don't have to plan by yourself. You don't have to try to navigate that. That's what we're here for. That's what your realtor is here for, to kind of help guide you and make that decision. With our experience, we can look at your full picture and say, you know what? I think that this is going to be a good time for you to buy. We want you to be successful.
Absolutely.
We don't want to just put you in a home and be like, okay, good job, all done. Good luck with everything. We're going to set you up for success for this. All right. So any last thoughts? Any last thoughts on renting versus buying? I think we kind of went over, there are going to be times when it's not beneficial to buy. Make sure that you're set in your financial situation, your relationship with your employment. If interest rates are the only thing that are holding you back from buying a home, hopefully this podcast has let you know that, that shouldn't be the only determining factor. Don't wait for rates to drop. Only look at buying when you can afford to buy.
And if you're a visual numbers person, there are some great rent versus own calculators, and we can do some of those simulations too, where they show kind of the average increase of rent and where your mortgage payment would be, and they kind of compare the two together.
Exactly.
So there's some good tools for that too.
Yeah, I would say, just instead of looking at the rate, look at the payment and the total investment and base your decision off that, because the rate can always change, if we refinance in the future, but at least you're set on that total monthly payment and total investment.
Exactly. There's so many benefits of home ownership, not just, the fact of owning a home, but incorporating that wealth into it, and just so many great reasons. So thank you so much for listening to our episode today on renting versus owning, the cost of renting and waiting to buy a home. If you have any questions about getting started, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We are always happy to answer any questions. But thank you again for listening to our episode today of Real Take Real Estate with the Joseph team, and we hope to catch you on the next episode. Thank you so much.